Shortstop is priority number one for the Atlanta Braves this offseason, but what options do they really have, especially if it's not Ha-Seong Kim? We'll look at the top free agent and trade options for the Atlanta Braves at shortstop this offseason on today's episode of Locked On Braves. So let's get into it.
You are Locked On Braves, your daily Atlanta Braves podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, and welcome back to Locked On Braves, part of Locked On Sports Atlanta, where we cover your favorite Atlanta sports teams each and every day. I'm your host, Jake Mastroianni. You can follow me on social media at Shortstop Ball. Check out the podcast there at LockedOn_Braves on X and Locked On Braves on Instagram. If you're new and you're watching us on YouTube, please make sure you hit that subscribe button, hit that thumbs up button, and leave us a comment down below. And if you listen on the audio side, you can help out as well. Just leave a 5-star review on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcast. Thanks so much for making Locked On Braves your first listen of each and every day. I do appreciate all your support here, and all my everydayers continuing to pile in with the comments and the thumbs up buttons and all of that. It really does mean a lot to me here at Locked On Braves. Thanks so much for those joining here today, as well as video. Joe, Frankie, appreciate you being in here with me live for today's episode. We're going to look at the shortstop position. Yesterday, I gave you my top priorities, and at the top of that list was shortstop. So today, I'm going to give you the options. I'm going to give you a pretty extensive list. I'm not going to go into great detail on each and every candidate. We'll do that as the offseason unfolds, but I want to give an exhaustive list of the top free agent targets and some potential trade targets as well to let you know what is out there, where the Braves could actually go this offseason to upgrade at shortstop. Today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Well, the first candidate on the list of shortstops is one that just struck out looking in the World Series, and that is Bo Bichette. Bo Bichette turns 28 in March. In 2025, he slashed .311, .357, .483 with a .134 WRC plus, 18 home runs, 4 stolen bases, just a 6.4% walk rate, but also just a 14.5% strikeout rate. So puts the ball in play a ton, very aggressive hitter, as again, just witnessed in this World Series about where he chased some pretty bad pitches out of the zone, but a very, very good hitter. He's had a 120 WRC plus or better in 6 of 7 seasons. You look at the pros and cons. Like I said, I'm not going to go too deep into any one player right now. We'll do that in future episodes, but hitting some of the highlights on several of these guys. The pros for Bo Bichette: hits for average, but it is very much average dependent. He doesn't walk a ton, and so he relies on that average for his ability to get on base. He doesn't strike out a lot, and decent power. It's not elite level type of power, but he plays enough games. It's going to be 20, 25 home run type of power, which is really solid. The cons for Bo Bichette: awful defensive metrics. I will say, when I have watched him play, I thought he's looked pretty good defensively at the shortstop position, but those are very few viewings, not enough to really give a full picture of Bo Bichette. Obviously, the metrics, and again, defensive metrics, you know by now, if you're an everyday listener, I don't put a ton of stock into them. I trust my eyes, but I can't watch every game. And that's the only way you can really know if somebody is good defensively or not, is to actually watch them play every game. And I just can't do that. What I have seen from Bo Bichette, I've been fairly impressed with what he looks like defensively, but the metrics absolutely hate Bo Bichette. Another con is that he doesn't walk. It is, as I said just a moment ago, his on base is solely average dependent, and that can sometimes lead to some volatility in that department. But for the most part in his career, like I said, 6 out of 7 seasons, it's been just fine. Other thing is the injuries: 135, 81, and 139 games played in the last 3 years. He's, especially the last 2 seasons, he was banged up going into the postseason, wasn't on the postseason roster for the first 2 rounds of Division Series and Championship Series, and is somewhat limited even here now in the World Series. So injuries are starting to become a little bit of a concern for Bo Bichette. And then it's also going to be a high cost. It's whether you view him as a shortstop or not, it's one of the best bats, maybe the second best bat in the free agent class behind Kyle Tucker. And so he's going to get paid just for his bat alone, even if you think he eventually has to move to second base, which is something we may discuss a little bit later on or in another episode where we fully dive into Bo Bichette. But number 2 on this list is Ha-Seong Kim. He just turned .330 in 2025. He slashed .234, .304, .345 with an 82 WRC plus. And this is the guy that Braves fans are clamoring for right now. That's how bad things have been at shortstop. 5 home runs, 6 stolen bases, an 8.4% walk rate, a 20.4% strikeout rate. He had been around 100 WRC plus for the last 3 seasons. So he's been an average offensive player for the majority of his big league career. The pros and cons for Ha-Seong Kim. The pros, he's a great defender. Again, he wasn't this past year, but I'm giving him a pass because of the injuries, but he has been a really good defender for most of his career. He walks a lot and he has some good speed. The cons, injuries, 117, 150, 152. Those are decent numbers there, but 128 and 48 games played the last 2 seasons now. And he's never been more than a 260 hitter, and he doesn't have a ton of power. I mean, max, you're looking at 15 home runs. But it's 15 home runs with potentially 20 to 30 stolen bases and a 240 to 260 average, and somebody that could be around a 100 WRC plus. And again, that's better than what the Braves have been getting at shortstop. Number 3 on the list is Trevor Story. He had a 3F4 season last year, his most since 2019. I still believe, even with that little bit of a resurgent season for Trevor Story, I think it would be dumb for him to turn down the guaranteed $55 million that the Red Sox would owe him if he picks up that option. So I think he's going to remain with the Red Sox, but then it might be a question of, do the Red Sox trade him, which we'll talk about in the next segment. Number 4 on the list of free agents is Willie Castro. He turns 29 in April. This past season, he slashed just .226, had a .313 on base, though, only a .366 slug, and 92 WRC plus, 11 home runs, 10 stolen bases, 8.8% walk rate, a 24.4% strikeout rate. You look at the pros for a Willie Castro. He's been around league average hitter for the last 3 years, 90 to 100, which again is much better than what the Braves have been getting offensively from that spot. He can play all over, second base, third base, shortstop, all outfield positions. It makes him very versatile and gives you a ton of options. Switch hitter, again, gives you some options. The cons, relatively poor on defense last year, had been better the previous 3 years. So maybe it was just a blip in the radar. Chances that he's nothing, there's a chance that he's nothing for you offensively. It's just with that profile. And again, it's not like he's been great offensively. There's a chance that he just doesn't give you anything, and he's not good defensively. He strikes out too much and not a lot of power. I would love to have Willie Castro. Let's say things don't work out. You don't get Bo Bichette. You don't get Ha-Seong Kim. Just purely looking at free agents, I wouldn't mind Willie Castro and like a Nick Allen combination, in that maybe you use Nick Allen, maybe you use Willie Castro and pinch hit spots and can play him at shortstop, moving around. I would not mind Willie Castro at all as a bench guy who may get some starts at shortstop here and there. Next on this list is somebody that's similar to that, and that's Isaiah Kiner-Falefa. Turns 31 in March, a career 82 WRC plus, never over 100, but usually around that 80 mark. But he hits 260 with the ability to steal. He's not necessarily fast, but he will steal some bases for you, and he can play all over. So it's those two profiles are very similar between Willie Castro and Isaiah Kiner-Falefa. Again, I wouldn't mind either of them. I certainly want to shoot higher, but I wouldn't mind either of them in kind of a combination with a Nick Allen or somebody else at the shortstop position. Number 6 is Miguel Rojas, and he has basically said that he's either going to retire or he's going to come back as a Dodger. But if the Braves were able to convince him, he's had a 110 and a 100 WRC plus the last 2 seasons. Granted, it's some pretty wide splits, or at least this past season it was. He was great against left-handed pitchers, and for the majority of his career, that's really been the only side he could hit. So that's a short side platoon at shortstop. A lot of shorts in there. But at 37, he's a veteran. Again, the offense has been better the last 2 seasons. He's always been very good defensively. Wouldn't hate the idea, but don't necessarily love it either. Again, I want to shoot higher, but these are some of your fallback options. Now, some other guys that you maybe could even get on minor league deals, Orlando Arcia, if you want to go down that route. Again, Dylan Moore, Kevin Newman, Zach Short, none of those really. Again, if you want to get some on the minor league deals or just some insurance to stash, okay, maybe. Even that, I really don't have too much interest in any of those guys. But that's the list of free agents, and that's why there is so much of an emphasis on getting Ha-Seong Kim, because I think Bo Bichette's probably going to get $30 million a year. and he's probably going to have to move to second base. Trevor Story, I think, is going to pick up his option and stay with the Red Sox, and then that's still going to be a pretty expensive player, even if you try to trade for him. And the rest of these guys, Willie Castro, IKF, Miguel Rojas, they're all kind of solid, but they're more so bench utility type of players at this point. All right, next we'll get into the trade candidates. And obviously we never know exactly who's going to be available in trades, but I got an exhaustive, good list here of some guys that I think could be available to varying degrees. And some of them I think are pretty exciting to potentially be the next shortstop for the Atlanta Braves. We'll get into those candidates here next. The NFL season is back, and honestly, there's nothing better than getting in the stadium surrounded by fans cheering on your team. But let's be honest, getting tickets can be a hassle between queues, login screens, and prices jumping at checkout. It's frustrating. That's why I use Gametime, the app that gives the advantage back to fans. Gametime is fast, easy, and backed by the Gametime guarantee. You'll always get 100% authentic tickets delivered on time and at the best price. Plus, all fees are included, so the price you see is the price you pay. It's super simple to use. I've already used it this offseason to take my nephew to a college football game, but during the baseball season, I use it for all the Braves games that I went to. The last Braves game that I went to, waited till the last minute, got a great deal down in section 41, outstanding price for me and my entire family. 5 tickets down there. We had a fantastic time. Bottom last minute, downloaded the tickets as I was going to the stadium that day. That's how easy it was, even doing it last minute. Absolutely love using the Gametime app, and you will too. Download the Gametime app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, that's promo code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. Download Gametime today. Thank you, as always, for making Locked On Braves your first listen of the day. Go check out Locked On MLB for your second listen of the day. Slowly, we get you caught up with everything happening around Major League Baseball. And the guys from MLB Game Night getting you caught up with everything happening in the World Series as well. So make sure you go give them a listen once you're done here. But then come back because we've got a lot more content coming your way this week. Tomorrow, we'll look at the relief pitcher list for free agents this upcoming offseason and some players that the Braves could target. And then we'll look at starting pitchers on Thursday. And then on Friday, we'll have our mailbag episode. So that's what's coming your way the rest of this week, unless there's some breaking news and maybe we get a managerial decision. But outside of that, that is the plan for the rest of this week. All right, next, I want to get into trade options for the shortstop position this upcoming offseason, one of which I already hinted at, and that is Trevor Story. If he picks up his option, which is $25 million a year the next 2 years, and then a $5 million buyout the year after that, so potentially 3 years of control, but likely just 2. If that gets picked up, I could see the Red Sox trying to dump him. They would have to eat a good bit of that contract for me to even consider the idea of trading for him with that injury history. And I know he's coming off a good year, but on the defensive side, definitely some regression, at least based on the metrics. Like I said, when I was able to watch him a ton to necessarily say for myself, but the metrics certainly didn't like where Trevor Story was defensively. So it would have to pretty much be a salary dump. I'm not giving up too much in return for him, maybe a middling pitching prospect. I'm not completely dismissive of it, but if they were to eat 10 million of that, take a middling pitching prospect, maybe. But even then, you're still paying, $20 million a year for Trevor Story, a guy that hasn't been healthy, and when he has been healthy, hasn't necessarily been all that good. So it's not an idea that I love, but it's an idea, and it could be better than what the Braves have. Next on this list is Anthony Volpe, who turns 25 in April. He's under arbitration through 2028, a career 85 WRC plus, which doesn't sound great because it's not. But again, as I've said multiple times already, it's better than what the Braves have been getting offensively at shortstop. After looking like a Gold Glover in 2024, was a Gold Glover, he took a big step back in 2025, mainly with the throwing. He led the American League with 19 errors this past season. 13 of them were throwing, and he apparently was playing through a shoulder injury. Now, it was his non-throwing shoulder, and he's already had offseason surgery for it, which is going to delay his start for next season. So that's already a bit of a red flag when it comes to Anthony Volpe. The fact that, 3 years in the big leagues now, he's been a consistently 80, 85 WRC plus player. The defense has regressed. Maybe it was related to the injury, but now you're going to trade for him in a year where he's going to be spending all offseason trying to rehab, get back on track, and he's going to be delayed to start the season. Now, this guy was a former first-round pick. He was a former top 10 prospect. There's a lot of really good pedigree there. He's already had a 2020 season and flirted with another one in 2025. So there certainly are some reasons to be optimistic about Anthony Volpe and a turning around. But this would be somewhat of a reclamation project. He has a strikeout issue. But again, for me, if I knew the defense was going to be back where it was pre-2025, and I watched a good bit of Anthony Volpe in the regular season, them and the Jays were battling down the stretch, so I watched a lot of those games. And then in the postseason, he just seemed hesitant defensively. He did not seem sure of himself. And again, I don't know how much of that can be related to your non-throwing arm, but that was just what I was seeing with my eyes. And then obviously with the throws, it just seemed like he had the yips a little bit. If I knew that was going to come back for Anthony Volpe, I'd be more willing to take a shot on him and hoping the offense eventually comes around, but knowing you also have a Gold Glover who's at least going to give you better offense than what you've been getting, at least, and give you a 2020 type of bat. I would certainly be more on board with trading for that if I knew the defense was going to come around. And maybe you get a discount on that. Who knows? I'm not completely dismissing Anthony Volpe. I think it could be a potential really good target for the Atlanta Braves. The next one is Corey Seager. And if money isn't an option, I think Corey Seager is the no-brainer here, and that's assuming the Rangers are even shopping him. He turns 32 in April. He seems much older than that. Feels like he's been around for a while. It's because his brother was in the league for a while and is older than him. But he's owed $31.5 million for the next 6 years. So it's a lot of money on the books for Corey Seager. When he's on the field, he's one of the best in all of baseball. At career 136 WRC plus, he's never been below 106, and that was in a year where he only played 26 games. So he's been very consistently a great hitter. He's averaging 118 games a season over the last 5 years and has only played in more than 123 games once in that span. So certainly availability has been a problem. He's also a beast in the postseason, a huge positive there. But this contract has the chance to be an absolute albatross. If he starts to decline, his production starts to decline, as he ages and the injuries continue to mount up and he misses a lot of times and you're paying him $31.5 million, because I don't think this is a salary dump for the Rangers. He's still a very, very good player. They're going to want some good prospects and for you to take on all, if not the majority of that contract. So I don't see it happening, but like I said, money's not an option. I'm taking a shot on Corey Seager because he is definitely the best of this group. Taylor Walls is next on this one, has a $2.45 million team option that I think they'll pick up, but it's the Rays, so who knows? He's actually controllable through 2027, so has 2 years of control left. A Gold Glove finalist. It is another glove first shortstop, but he is a switch hitter. It seems like another Nick Allen, but it's a career WRC plus of 70, which is better than Nick Allen's 53, so it is an upgrade. You get a good Gold Glove finalist defender, and you get a 20-point upgrade in WRC plus. No power, but good speed, walks a good bit, but does strike out a ton. So again, don't love this one, but I don't hate it either, because I do think it is a little bit of an upgrade. Gives you 2 years of control for a guy that has a good glove, and it's not a high bar to clear, but at least is better offensively than Nick Allen. The next one on here, Oneil Cruz, just turned 27, under contract through 2028. This would be an obvious reclamation project, but the upside is 30-30 superstar potential. Last year was bad for him, but he was transitioning to a new position, which is another part of this. I don't even know that he's a shortstop. He rates very poorly at the shortstop position, has that big arm, but is also very, very tall. So I don't even know if he is a shortstop long-term. This one is not very likely. Ezequiel Tovar turned 24 in August, under contract through at least 2030, with money going from 5.2 to 8.2, 11.2, 14.2, and 16.2. So a very, solid contract for Ezequiel Tovar, but he is coming off a dreadful season with a 78 WRC plus, took a step back defensively as well. This one feels kind of similar to Anthony Volpe in that it feels like a bit of a reclamation project offensively, but you should get good defense, or at least you hope you are. You hope you are with Volpe if, once he's injured there, that he gets back to his 2024 self. But he's young, he's controllable, he's not that expensive, and there's some potential upside for him there. Jeremy Pena turned 28 in September, coming off his best offensive season with a 135 WRC plus. Now, this was a little bit inflated with a fantastic first half, but even in the second half, he was still very good with a 792 OPS. So really kind of coming out as a bat. He's always been a great defender. He's arbitration eligible for the next 2 seasons. Not sure what the Astros plans are right now. From what I read on Reddit from Astros fans, they think it's pretty much zero chance that they trade Jeremy Pena. But hey, they traded Kyle Tucker, so who knows what could happen here. The next one is Zach Neto. Turns 25 in January. He's under control through arbitration for 4 more seasons, a 115 and a 116 WRC plus the last 2 seasons, going 2020 in both of those years. Good, but not great defensively based on the metrics. But I watch a good bit of Angels games, or at least I used to, because I love Mike Trout. But obviously with his decline and not playing a lot, I didn't watch a ton this past season. But when I do, I feel like the IQ is there for Zach Neto. Maybe he doesn't grade out well defensively, but whenever I watch him, he just seems to make the right plays and seems like a really good defender at shortstop. With Permanasian and Kurt Suzuki basically on 1-year deals, they got to figure it out this year. I would be shocked if they trade somebody that could be a cornerstone for the Angels going forward. And if they're going to turn things around, they got to have Zach Neto. So I don't think he's available, but thought I would mention it because some other people asked about him. And look, at least if you're Alex Anthopoulos, you got to ask too. CJ Abrams would be a cool story coming back to Atlanta, but no, I just cannot take CJ Abrams playing defense. Josh Smith is one I get asked about a lot. So maybe you don't get Corey Seager from the Rangers. Maybe you get Josh Smith. He turned 28 in August, 112 and 100 WRC plus the last 2 seasons with double-digit home runs and stolen bases. Under ARB for 3 more seasons. Rates pretty poorly as a defender at shortstop, though. I put him in kind of that Willie Castro IKF range, whatever you want to call it. I couldn't think of the right word there, but bubble, I think was the word I was going for. I don't know that he's an everyday shortstop, but I would certainly like to have him just for his versatility and the bat. And you can play him in multiple positions, and maybe he does get a run at shortstop for you. So I wouldn't mind Josh Smith as kind of a fallback option if nothing else is there. You could look to the Guardians for Gabriel Arias or Brian Rocchio. I don't know that either necessarily would be available. They both have similar offensive profiles. They both had a 77 WRC plus last year, which is not good at all. And Arias was better a defender at shortstop for what that's worth. But again, I don't think either of those are realistic. And then just quickly on some of these others that I know a lot of you will ask about. Javi Baez, no thanks. Gerardo Perdomo, I would love for that to happen. I wanted it to happen last offseason, but the Diamondbacks love Perdomo, gave him an extension, and then he went out and had his best season yet. So I don't think that's going to happen. And then for Bobby Witt, Colson Montgomery, Lindor, Turner, Jacob Wilson, Henderson, De La Cruz, Adames, Bogarts, Betts, Swanson, Wynn, those guys are not getting traded. So I don't even consider those. I don't think any of those guys are getting moved. Would be shocked if they did. So that's the list. Free agents, trades. Let me know if I missed somebody. Next, I'll get into some of your comments and your top 3 that for your wish list for shortstop. We'll get into some news, some guesses on the managerial prediction from David O'Brien. We'll talk about all that here next. So I asked you your top 3 choices for shortstop. Nate Miller says Ha-Seong Kim to pick up his player option, sign Bo Bichette, or trade for Mason Wynn, Jeremy Pena, or Taylor Walls. Matt Olsen-Burner says, aside from Ha-Seong Kim, number 1 would be Bo. No, I don't care if he moves to second base one day, Pena, and then Neto. But Ha-Seong Kim and a big bat is fine. C-Mac says Kim, Seager, or Ellie if the Reds are going to trade him. Kathy says Jeremy Pena, Zach Neto, Jacob Wilson, all young and controllable. Certainly would be great if you get one of those guys. Calvin Penner says Ha-Seong Kim, Bo Bichette, and Ezekiel Tovar. Matthew Christensen says Kim for free agency trade. Baez and dream would be Witt. That certainly is a dream. And can't we all dream? QC Hawk says Kim, Tovar, and Seager. Jamie says Kim, Seager, Bichette. APBC says Lawler, Seager, and Kim. We hadn't talked about prospects. I may do another episode looking at shortstop prospects that the Braves could go after. It's just that's a fool's errand to some extent. Trey Robinson says Kim, Neto, and Tovar, and Brian James says Kim, Seager, and Bichette. So a lot of you with the same ones that I had. A little bit of news from around the league and from the Braves. David O'Brien of The Athletic says that he guesses the Braves are waiting on the Dodgers to finish the season to hire Danny Lehman. like I said last week, for David O'Brien and for Mark Bowman, nobody knows at this point. And even David O'Brien himself says he's guessing that's what the Braves are waiting on. I don't know that I completely buy that. And maybe that is the case, and that's what they're waiting on. Maybe they just want to give him another interview, and he's busy with the World Series right now, so you don't have that chance. I don't know. But I think just the fact that they haven't announced something yet, people are getting a little impatient and waiting. And just because you're waiting, you assume that it's somebody that's still in the World Series. And that certainly could be true, but that's all of us just trying to guess and assume at this point. There are still 5 vacancies available. So it's not like the Braves are the only team that hasn't made a decision yet, but they are certainly, I think, the best job opening left. And so maybe it's just a hierarchy that a lot of these managers are just waiting to see what the decision is for the Braves. Maybe some of these guys are still in the running. Maybe a David Ross, George Lombard. Maybe these other guys are still in the running for the Braves, and they want to wait till that decision's made before they decide to go with another team. You got the Nats, Twins, Padres, Braves, and Rockies. The Padres are the only other team that seems somewhat interesting right now as a manager. So I think we are just kind of in a holding period right now to see what the Braves do. The Orioles did go ahead and hire their manager. They got Craig Albernaz, who was on Stephen Vogt's staff with the Guardians. So they go ahead and take care of their managerial vacancy. And then Troy Snitker was added to the Mets staff as a hitting coach. Thought maybe there would be some sort of reunion with he and his father within the Braves organization, but not to be the case as he goes to the rival Mets. The Mets also parted ways with their first base coach in Anton Richardson, who apparently did a great job helping the Mets steal bases last year. They finished 5th in the league in stolen bases. They had 5 guys with 12 or more steals, 8 guys with 7 or more. You know how much I hate the Braves running game. If they could get somebody that can certainly help in that department, I would be all on board for that. But of course, you got to have your manager first. And then as far as the World Series go, it's tied up a 1-1 in this game. It's tied up 4-4 in the 6th. Although the Blue Jays got completely messed up earlier in this game with just an awful strike call on a ball that was 4 inches above the strike zone. But hopefully the Blue Jays can get back in the lead here and win a game 3 of this series. But it's been an entertaining one nonetheless. The Blue Jays definitely have shown that they belong here and that they can go toe-to-toe with the Dodgers. So that's been fun to see. That would do for this episode of Locked On Braves. Thanks so much for joining me here. Sylviana Hunt, Joe Me. Joe Me thinks that it is a layman. It certainly could be. Like I said, I'm just part of me. I'm so on the George Lombard train that I just don't want to give up on that. And I just don't know much about this Danny Lehman. He's never been a coach before, or at least a manager. Certainly has been a bench coach for the last 3 years. I don't know. I'm just not fully bought in on the Danny Lehman idea for the manager. But again, that's just certainly where I am. Highway 9 Atlanta in here with me as well. Chris Birdsall, thank you so much. Appreciate you joining me as well. Joe Me likes Tovar, Pena, and Neto. I mean, those guys would be great. And yeah, Seager will be expensive, but he is really, really good. That's why he's so expensive. But Slap says no way for Seager because of the injury history and the money that he's owed. So I get both sides of that. But again, thanks so much for joining me. Storm Chaser, Video Moon, know you were in here earlier. Appreciate you joining. E. Fuentes and Everyday are in here as well. Says mine is Hassan Kim, Neto, or Hoyner. I would love Seager, but it's a lot of money for a guy with injury history. I've come around on the Nico Hoyner idea. It's just I don't know why the Cubs would trade him is the only thing for them for that possibility. All right, hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. Make sure you hit that thumbs up button as well. Leave a comment down below. Appreciate your support here of the podcast. Make sure that you rate, review, and subscribe to the Locked On Braves podcast wherever you get your podcast, and we will talk to you next time.